Okay, so welcome everyone to the Salesforce Marketer Groups, the Cleveland chapter of the Salesforce Marketers Group. Um, Part two of our Data Cloud for Marketers series. We'll share later the link to part one and the recording as well, maybe on a later post. Today we're gonna talk about data ingestion and harmonization. I'm gonna touch on that topic. So agenda for today. We're gonna do an intro to ourselves, introduce ourselves, Tom and I, and introduce the group. Um, do a quick overview of what we saw in part one with Adam, what Adam presented in part one, and then I'm gonna dive right into the data ingestion and harmonization concepts for data cloud and identity resolution as well. So I don't know, Tom, if you wanna introduce yourself, and then I'll do the same.
Sure. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Tom Clyde, says a few times certified in Salesforce Marketing Cloud Technologies. Been working with Marketing Cloud since about 2012, 2013, kind of dating back to the old Exact Target days. So, yeah, continue to learn and grow within the platform itself. Former colleague of Pato and a few others maybe on this call as well. This is the Cleveland Marketers Group, and so we are excited to kind of rejuvenate the group a bit, get some more events on the calendars, and just promote, share knowledge, and build the community here in Cleveland. So very nice to meet you all.
Awesome. And I'm Pato Sapir. I'm also based in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm an MVP, and I've been working with Salesforce Marketing Cloud, similar to Tom, since 2012, exact target days. I work at Devs United, which is a company, Salesforce consulting partner based in Cleveland. We have offices in Buenos Aires and Santiago, Chile as well. Yeah, we, like Tom said, we decided to kind of like take the leadership of the Cleveland marketers group. We feel that there is a lot of opportunity for sharing content for the community, and we've been conducting, I would say, every other month, right, Tom? We were conducting events. So we'll talk a little bit later about opportunities for sharing your knowledge with the community, and then we this series in particular, we decided to do a fully virtual, especially given the time of the day that we're doing it and whatnot. But usually we try to meet um, in person, and we'll have a virtual portion of the meeting as well. So the Data Cloud for Marketers series, the intention of this is kind of like to create a good base of understanding for marketers of what Data Cloud can do for you, and start from the basics. We did an introduction of Salesforce Data Cloud. Adam Babcock did that back in October, I believe, or September, more or less. And part two, where we are today, is we're going to talk about data ingestion and harmonization. Part three, I'm going to talk about segmentation and activation. And then part four, we're going to have someone from Salesforce come in and talk a little bit about the future of Data Cloud, some of the future um, roadmap and features that are out there for Salesforce Data Cloud. So it's going to be really cool. We'll announce it and give you a chance to bring some questions and comments there. Again, we try to do this series. We're trying to do one per month, more or less, depending on the schedules. We both have full-time jobs and families and whatnot, so we try to do our best to keep it going. So let's do a quick overview of part one. So in part one, we talk about the CDP concept. So CDP stands for Customer Data Platform. It allows you to basically take all the sources of data for your business, integrate them in, bring the raw data in, unify that data, and then um, segment that data and activate that data with your activation channels. So a customer data platform allows you to bridge a gap between um, all the sources of data that you have in your business. So it can be order data, device, behavioral, etc., and all your activation channels. And it really creates that single view of your profiles, and so you can actually create segments and activate those segments in the multiple marketing platforms that you use. So that can be social or email or website or even in store. So we talked about data cloud in part one. um and Salesforce Data Cloud is the um platform that allows you to do exactly that, right? You can connect, and we're going to talk in this session about the available data sources for connection. So you can connect data, whether that's on batch data or using an API. And the idea is that you model and harmonize that data to have a common and general understanding of what that data should look like. So we do that during the harmonization process. Once you have all that data harmonized, you can start to understand your profiles and start creating segments. So identity resolution is going to be a big part of this process, but also creating segments and getting insights about your data. And lastly, it allows you to activate. So you can activate whether that's or Salesforce products such as Service or Sales Cloud, Marketing Cloud, or Commerce. But you can also activate to other BI tools, as well as web and mobile apps, or even other ecosystems as well. Before we start getting deeper into what we're gonna talk about today, I wanna go over a couple of key concepts that we're going to discuss in this session. Because I'm gonna use some acronyms, so it's important that we all understand them. So we're gonna talk about data streams. A data stream is basically a data source brought into Data Cloud. So, for example, um, a Marketing Cloud data extension is a data stream. When we bring a data stream into Data Cloud, you see it on a demo that I'm gonna do here in a few minutes. We're gonna map it to a data lake object. A data lake object is a representation of a container in the Data Cloud data lake. And then we're going to talk about DMOs, which is data model object. So a data model object is um, a, a standard object that is mapped from a data lake object. So basically, the easiest way to think about it is you're going to import all your raw data into a data lake object, and that data lake object, you're going to map it into a data model object. So I could have 3 or 4 different data lake objects, and they can be mapped to the same data model object. The whole idea of Data Cloud is that everything lives in a standard data model, right? So one of the main, for example, data model objects that we're going to look at for identity resolution is the individual object. So if you think about it, you can have profiles created on a website and profiles created on a CRM, like contacts. Those two can be different data streams and data lake objects, but they're going to be mapped to the same individual object. So the main intention of a data model object is to have a standard model for all your data, regardless of where the data comes from. And that's key, because then that's going to allow you to do things like activations and segmentation. So an activation target is like the word says, like it's basically where you're going to activate your segment. So for example, Marketing Cloud. Identity resolution is a process of matching and reconciling objects into a unified profile, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in this session. And then reconciliation rules is basically rules that define what is a which source system to use when creating a unified profile. So think about reconciliation rules is how do we resolve conflict when I have two profiles that come from different data sources but have similar data? Which data do I take first, right? Which attribute? And then a unified profile is a result of doing identity resolution. So I put here like a glossary guide article that is really helpful. It has all the terms uh, that are used in Data Cloud. So I recommend you to look at that as well. So let's talk about ingesting and harmonizing data. So first of all, it's important to understand kind of like the typical Data Cloud implementation. Um, the step by step of once you identify the need for Data Cloud and did proper discovery. These are kind of steps that you're gonna go through when you are implementing Data Cloud. So again, think about this as the execution of implementation. One of the most important parts of a Data Cloud project is going to be discovery. And you'll see, I'll walk you through a couple. Once we walk through, identifying data sources and mapping them into the corresponding DMOs, you will see why it's important that to conduct a proper discovery. But basically, the steps of a typical Data Cloud implementation are going to be, bring the raw data in, connect and ingest the data, prepare and model the data. So basically, map that raw data into the standard data model. Then you're gonna unify all your data. So you're gonna work in identity resolution to eliminate, to make sure you merge all your profiles into one. And then you can, once you have that, that's a big part, right? Then you're gonna be able to create segments and activate them. And the idea is to act and analyze the data and the results, and then, kind of like go back into a circle. In this session, we're gonna cover these three steps. And in the third session, we're gonna cover probably the other step, the create and activate segment step. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about data streams. So a data stream, like I said, is a process of bringing in a source of data, connecting the source of data. So it can be, we're going to see an example, I think, with Amazon S3 and the CRM connector. And then bringing that into a data lake object. So these are kind of steps to configure a data stream. You select the data source. Could be previously selected data source, or you have to create a new connection. We're gonna try to do that today. You choose a data source object that is going to live for that data stream. You define its properties. You define the data types. You verify that everything, because basically, like I said, like the data stream is gonna live in a data lake object. So you will have the opportunity to do a little bit of manipulation before the data gets important. This is a part where it's kind of nice because sometimes you might have data from like events that people run and maybe the data is not clean. This is a part that you can do transformations and formulas to kind of transform the data so it's imported in a clean manner, which is kind of nice. And then once you do that, you can just set up the refresh, how often you want to refresh this data. I'll show you these steps in a minute here. So let's talk, before going into the demo, I want to talk a little bit about the available data sources that we have in Data Cloud today. So we can categorize them in three main categories. The first one is Salesforce native. So we can connect commerce, B2C commerce, marketing cloud personalizations, and Salesforce CRM, sales and service, right? Then we have what are called Data Cloud services, which is, we have the ingestion API. We have the MuleSoft Anypoint connector, which is basically, think about it as using MuleSoft as a middleware. to connect multiple platforms and send them into Data Cloud. Then we have the Salesforce Interactions SDK. This is kind of a standard web SDK where you can send data from your website into Data Cloud. And then we have the web and mobile application connector, which is the SDK for mobile apps that you can use to send data into Data Cloud. And lastly, we have the others category, which is, Amazon S3, Azure, Google Cloud Storage, the STP connector, SFTP connector, sorry, and then the App Exchange solutions that are there to connect with your data. So let's take a look at how this works. Okay, so I'm gonna try to do some things here. Let's see. I'm gonna look at my other screen real quick. All right, so we're in the in the Data Cloud, a demo that I have for Data Cloud. I have also a S3 account that I'm going to be uploading some files here. That I got from one of the exercises that are available for the Data Cloud certification. So we got 3 CSV files. By the way, you can get a free Amazon S3 account, to play around with. Amazon S3 is kind of like a storage service, right? So I'm uploading the files. So I had 3 files: order headers, order line items, and customer profiles. And then what I do is I'm creating a new data stream, and I'm gonna choose the Amazon S3 data stream. I'm gonna put the bucket name. So a bucket is like a storage repository for Amazon. So I have it here. I'm gonna copy it. And then also when you create a Amazon S3 storage account, it gives you like an access key and a secret that you have to, store. So copying and pasting that. The secret key. And then the directory is basically the location on Amazon S3 where my data will live. I'll put that in. So here it says basically like, you have to put like the path where the files are. So e-commerce data. And then the name of a file, right? I'm gonna import let's see, the order headers, customer profiles. Now let's do the order headers. Put that in, and then the source is I think it's kind of like the name of where this data comes from. So you can put like store maybe, or yeah, we can put maybe store. And then we click next. Oops. Oh, I forgot the slash at the end, and then next. The name of the bucket is case sensitive, so we're gonna change that. I forgot about that. So the next step is to choose, okay, in which data lake object this is going to live. So we can choose a new data lake object, or like I said, like we can reuse data lake objects if we have multiple sources of data that go into the same data lake object. Again, right now, data lake object doesn't. We haven't mapped these objects into the standard model, so we can import all the raw data how we need to. So we're gonna choose a category. One of the things with the category is if you import profile type data, I think it affects some of the pricing. So the pricing, it could be another topic for another session probably. And then the other thing here, what you can see is I kind of like, I choose the primary key as order number, and you can see all the fields of my file, and I can make transformations here if I like to. And then we're gonna choose to upsert the data or a full refresh, but in this case we're gonna upsert. And then the frequency, we can choose how often we want this to be processed. And then I think we can just deploy this. So now what we just did is we connected a CSV file that we drop in an S3 bucket to a data lake object, but this data lake object is not mapped. Okay. Um, let's do one more. Let's do the other file, the other line items file, so you can kind of see the process again real quick. So again, like I choose it, the data source, and this for S3, you don't have to configure anything. Basically, the only thing that I feel like they should improve is that pre-configuring this will be nicer, so you don't have to put the access key, the secret key every time. If you have like 10 files, might be a pain. So I don't think there's a way to do that yet, but so we put the secret key again, and then we put the file. Let's say we just put the file name that we want, or the folder, sorry, and the file name. Let's do the line items. And then source, we'll put the source name, and then again, like here's where you can we choose a new data lake object, right? And then you put a name, and then here's where you see all the fields. Here's where you can do add formula fields. So if you want to extrapolate like a name or something from one of the fields and put in a separate fields, you can do it here. But also you can use transformations to do a lot more advanced things with the files when you process them. Oops, refresh mode. So there you go. We connected two files to Amazon. They're not mapped yet. It's just the raw data is in, right? And then let's try to do a CRM connector. So because another typical scenario is that your CRM could be another source of data. And Data Cloud is gonna sit in an org, in a CRM org. Typically, could be the CRM org where you are, but sometimes you can connect up to 5, I think, more CRM orgs. So what I'm doing here is I'm going into like a demo org that we use here at Devs United. It's like a fake store called Football Shop. And one of the things you need to make sure to do the CRM connector is that you need to set up, like in my domain, there is a feature, a setting. Well, two things you have to do to make sure that the CRM connector with Data Cloud is going to work. The first one is you have to allow the Data Cloud IP ranges in Sales Cloud. There is an article when you go in to look at the CRM connector for Data Cloud. There is an article that explains the prerequisites. But the second part is there is a setting here for the instance URL not to be redirected or something like that. And you need to make sure that you have that as don't redirect, so you can actually install the package first. So if you go here on redirections, I think it's this one, and this one at the bottom, don't redirect, and you save that. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go into Data Cloud setup. So we go back to Data Cloud. Yeah, let's go back to Data Cloud, and then we're gonna go to Data Cloud setup, and then we're gonna create the data source for Salesforce CRM, and then we're gonna click on new, connect another org, and then basically we log into to my football shop org. Okay, let's pass. Please help. There we go. And then you shouldn't have any problems. There you go. Now we connected Football Shop to Data Cloud, and now we can create a new data stream. And if we choose Salesforce CRM as a data stream, we're gonna choose the org that we just had. And we have two options, data bundles and all objects. So we can bring the objects that we want, or data bundles, which basically is like define standard objects that you want to bring for sales or service, and it will do the mapping to the data model objects itself. So it's kind of nice. And you can create your custom ones as well, if you want. But when I choose on sales, this will bring account, contact, and lead objects. So we can also include or exclude any fields, add formula fields in here as well. So it treats it like a regular data stream, but it already did a lot of the work for us, which is nice. And then, you have the refresh schedule and whatnot. And then that's it. We connected now CRM. So now the next step is to the mapping. So if you see here data mapping for a data stream, we click on start. So for example, for my sales order, we're gonna see on the left hand side all my fields that I brought from my data stream that are unmapped. And then on the right hand side, I have my data model entities, right? So again, the goal is to map all my raw data to a standard model. So then I can start doing segmentation and the identity resolution and whatnot. So it's very important also to know what the data model object entities that are available are and what they do. Like have a general understanding of how that works is important, because if you don't know that, you're gonna get to the screen and you don't know what to map it to. So Data Cloud has a specific model, that you can create your own custom objects and whatnot, but like some of the objects are required for identity resolution or segmentation or activation. So here, for example, I'm choosing the sales order object as my object, but here we can go here to this documentation real quick, and this document, which I'm gonna put in the chat, has a customer 360 data model and all the subject area. So very important to be familiarized with this data model to understand the relationships between the standard model in Data Cloud. That's gonna give you an advantage. So for example, the party data model is one of the most important ones to know. The individual data model as well, and the contact points. But here's, for example, is a sales order data. You can see what the data model objects are in here and what the purpose is. And there is a diagram also with all the relationships and whatnot. So you can understand when you map these relationships are already built, And you can create your custom objects and fields as well, but the recommendation is always try to map to the standard. Once we click on the object, Data Cloud is going to try to map by field name, but then I can add additional mapping. So for example, one could be like the order date. So if we can search a field name here. So for example, if we search date, the created date can be mapped to the order date. So we just select order date and created date, and there you go. It's a mapping, So now we know that this is a mapping of the object, right? We're just mapping the raw data with the standard objects. Sales order status is another one. And then obviously primary key, you have to map the primary key with the primary key of the object, right? So for example, the order ID is gonna be mapped to the order number. Once we have the mapping done, we can actually see, how those objects were mapping in that Explorer. I can show you here in a little bit. So the mapping process is also important to know how you're gonna map, the objects. But if you know the data model object, it's gonna help you. And then here's like the contact object, for example, which we did with the connector. You can see that the mappings are already done for us, and we can just review them. So for example, we have the account contact object. And again, you can map one data lake object can be mapped to multiple data model objects in this example, right? So contact point address, contact point email. These are objects that are needed for activation. So contact point email is another one. Contact point phone is another one. Individual is another one. So as you can see, I'm mapping one data lake object to multiple data model object, and that's totally normal. The idea is to end up with a standard model. And then here's the last part I wanted to show you is Data Explorer. I can actually look at my data model objects. I can search by, the model objects that I have. So sales order, for example, like I was saying, and I can kind of review what um, look at, just do a quick check on what was mapped. If it's bringing data or not. So I can see here that it's bringing data, so I can kind of review the mappings and whatnot, and I can filter data and whatnot. Okay, so let's get back to our presentation. So let's talk now about identity resolution. So basically what we saw so far is we brought raw data into Data Cloud. Again, I'm trying to show a couple of data sources. Imagine it will take a lot of sessions to try to show every single option and data sources. So trying to give you some basics. And then we map those data lake objects into one or multiple data model objects, right? So the next step is to try to define identity resolution. So identity resolution is the process in which Data Cloud will apply matching rules and reconciliation rules to combine values from different sources in a unified profile. And that unified profile is going to have one or more contact points. So one of the things to think about is that we always talk about the concept of golden records, but like Salesforce says that, like golden record means that there is one unique record for your person. But like here is more unified profile is more about, I could have multiple contact points for a person, but that person can be the unified, can be still unified, can still be unified. So a good example could be like, data that I bring from Marketing Cloud on the left, a subscriber in Marketing Cloud, and data that I have about the same person about Sales Cloud. I know those people are going to be mapped in the data model object. They're going to be mapped to the individual, but if I have two records for the individual, object, how do I know which one, if they're the same person or not? So identity resolution helps you that. The first thing you do is you set match rules. So, you create what is called a rule set. A rule set has two things: match rules, which basically I can say, okay, if I have two conflicting individuals, I want you to unify them by looking at their first name, for example. And if they look similar, match them. That's what it's called fuzzy matching. So fuzzy matching could be like, has different levels um of uh, of how exact has to be the match. So for example, my actual name is Patricio, but I always go by Pato. That's my nickname since I was little. So the system, Data Cloud has like a algorithm that includes 160 countries for matching names and whatnot. Data Cloud is gonna match my as this is the same name, so it should be the same person. And then also I say, and also obviously match email, because there could be a lot of people called Patricios. But if I have the same email address, match it. And then okay, I do the matching, Data Cloud says, but which name do I take? The one from Sales Cloud and the one from Data Cloud? Which one do I take? I don't know. You tell me. So that's where the reconciliation rules come in, right? So reconciliation rule is that it's okay. Now I found the match, but the fields are different. They have different value. Which one do I take? So reconciliation rules allow you to define that. It's like for a given source of data, which one takes precedence. So you have three options. The last one that was updated. So for example, if the record from Marketing Cloud has a most recent update date, take the first name from that one. The most frequent, if there is if a one from Service Cloud is the one that's mostly frequently updated, take the one from Service Cloud or Sales Cloud. And source priority doesn't matter. It doesn't, not, I don't want to see dates. I don't want to see frequency. You always take the one from Sales Cloud. So that's reconciliation rules. Is given a match, which one takes priority. So like I said, the match rules, they tell the Data Cloud how to unify profiles. You can say more than one criteria again, because you gotta say, I want to match his profile by name and by email, right? Once the match rule is met, the entire match rule is met, the profile is gonna be merged, right? And you can only create match rules for certain objects, individuals or accounts, okay? Because that's why you're trying to basically unify, because the individual is the one that you're going to target on your activation and your segments, and the accounts as well, right? In order for identity resolution to work, you have to follow certain requirements of mapping. So for example, like, you won't be able to do identity matching rules on phone number if you didn't map the phone number in the data model object. The system will show you a warning that it can do it. You'll see it maybe now, if because I don't believe I did much. So this article right here that I put in the chat has all the requirements to do um, the mapping correctly, so you can actually conduct identity resolution. And you can create custom rules, but there are a lot of rules that come by default. So if you have if you are matching, if you are creating identity resolution for accounts, you can you have different rules. So for example, exact name and normalized address, right? And then for individuals, you have different matching rules. So for example, one of a match rule is called fuzzy name and normalized email. That means that it's gonna try to match the first name of a person, like I was saying the example, right? Fuzzy matching. So Pato versus Patricio is gonna match it. Individual last name has to be exact. So for those two records to be matched, my last name has to be the same in both records. And contact point email address. So my email address has to be exact but normalized. What does that mean? Sometimes an email address can come with like a special character around it or something like that. Data Cloud is gonna normalize it. It's gonna remove all that. It's gonna just leave the email address, and it's gonna try to match. So if this rule is true, then it's gonna match my two profiles. There's a similar one with phone numbers and address and whatnot. One more thing before we look into the demo. Sometimes you have data from external entities. So for example, driver's license. You might have data with driver's licenses. Or data from mobile advertiser ID, like mates, like anonymous data from mobile apps. To resolve the identity for these type of profiles, you have to map this data to an object called party identification. Okay. And that is tied to an individual. That is tied to an individual object. So for example, here in the example that we see here, party identification, you have to map three fields: identification type, name, and number. So party identification type could be like you type it in, right? You type social loyalty membership. Identification name, it can be state license, and the number is the ID of a license. So when you are doing the mapping, let's say you bring data from a third party system or from a mobile app. When you're doing the mapping, and you at some point you want to merge the anonymous data with the individual data, you're gonna map it to the party identification, because you can identify but you can't tie it to an individual yet. And then what does it do? What is the matching rule for party identification? It's very simple. If there are two records that of individuals that have the same party identification type, the same party identification name, and the same party identification number, it's gonna merge them. So that's a good way to do anonymous data, or sometimes when you have data from another system, like I said, like a license. So let's do a quick demo of all this to kind of close the loop in this. So let's see. Okay, so um, in Data Cloud, right, we're gonna go to identity resolutions. I have a rule set already created here from the past, but we're gonna create a new one. Okay, so we're gonna choose when we create a new rule set. It's gonna tell me, okay, which is your primary data model object that you wanna create it against, individuals or accounts. I'm gonna say individual, and I'm gonna give it an I think, I don't know, well, ID. ID is kind of like a differentiate. Um, oh, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna give it an ID, and then a name, right? So my rule set, for example, and then as you can see at the bottom, it tells you what are the output objects that are gonna be created after this rule set runs, right? You can have multiple rule sets running, and you can kind of see which one works better also, because it's going to show you conciliation rates and whatnot, which is kind of nice. So once I have the rule set, as I see, I need to configure the match rules. When I click on configure, as you can see, I have match rules by default. But you see some of them show warnings because I probably have something wrong with the mapping, that will tell me, hey, this match rule won't work. So the default match rule that I show you is that I'm choosing is the one that I kind of show you in the example. I can choose like, the object that I want to match, which is a field and what is a match method. And then I can add additional criteria if I want. So I can say, okay, this is a party identification number, has to be exact. So if I bring someone with a license, uh, driver's license, it has to be so license and driver's license, right? So I type it in Spanish. Um, and then I click next, and then I can add other rules. So if I add a custom rule, there's no difference between custom and default. The only thing is custom. It doesn't come with the predefined rules, so I have to add them. But it's basically I can replicate them. There's no difference between default and custom. Default is just saves you sometimes, of thinking about the matching rules. But here I can choose what I want. I'm gonna cancel all of this. But remember, like, identity resolution is all about resolving conflicts when I have two individual objects. How do I want to resolve them? How do I want to match them? And how do I want to resolve the reconciliation rules? So identity resolution is going to run every 24 hours, I think. So this one won't, I don't think it will run. But let me show you reconciliation rules. So reconciliation rules, I can see it's already by default, it will create based on the object that I choose, individual account, is going already to create by default like what it is a standard, but I can modify them, right? Um, so I can choose here, for example, for birthday, I can choose, okay, from most frequent, and I can choose from which data stream I wanted to take first, also. But this one is the most frequent one. So take the birthday that where the data stream is most frequently updated, right? And that's it. Then I set up identity resolutions. I can see like my one of the running rules, like here, I can see kind of like the results, and I can troubleshoot. It will give me some warnings and ideas also, Data Cloud. Um, but it will show me the consolidation rate, how many profiles I find match, um, how many profiles he unified. So, okay. Um, yeah, I see. I see some questions on the chat. We can take a couple of questions later on the chat as soon as I finish. But yeah, identity resolution is a topic that you kind of have to figure out during discovery. Try to see, okay, how you're gonna identify the profiles. But it really depends on your business case. Like if you know that you have people like financial institutions sometimes using an external ID, like I don't know, it could be like a ID number or license number depending on the country as an identifier. So that's where you will use that party identification number process. um I think the most important part is to define how you're going to match those profiles. So for example, if you have, sometimes if you have, like you were saying, like people with multiple email addresses, you have to you know create probably some transformations before you're mapping, and you can add rules also to like try to like filter out people as well. So uh yeah, so when I set up the data streams, I use my personal login. Ideally you have to have like a service like tied account, so an account that is tied to an administrator, right? So I wouldn't recommend same for Amazon as well. Like you should always have some sort of login that is not tied to an employee, but more to like a service login. Yeah, what I did was just a demo, but yeah, I wouldn't recommend use your own login to connect to SaaS Cloud. That would be dangerous. All right. Thank you for the questions. That's awesome. Um, so I have a couple of additional resources here. Like I said, very important, and we'll share the deck on the Slack chat as well. We have the data cloud data model. I will highly recommend look into that. Also, understanding how often data streams refresh, because Sales Cloud, since it's a connected data stream, it has different schedules hours. So understanding that more. Yeah. So Alan makes a good point. Is yeah. So as part of your data governance procedures and whatnot, that should be part of like the standard practice. Anyways, just have logins that are connected to third-party services, not be tied to a person. You know, in other type of integrations with CRM, I know there is a concept. I'm not an expert in CRM. I'm not an expert in anything, but less CRM. But I know there is a concept of manage apps. I believe it is in CRM, where you will create that app and then that you will get a specific key and whatnot. I think that could be a better approach for Data Cloud, but in this case, you are kind of like have to put credentials to connect your org. So I will recommend just having a generic org. Um, yeah, that I think we could do an entire session, because I'm not 100% in the know of pricing for Data Cloud. I know a little bit about it, but I think it would be cool to bring someone from Salesforce, from the Data Cloud team, to educate us a little bit on pricing.
Yep, my
I think
thoughts
that's
exactly.
Yeah, I think that's something, Tom, that we talked about. I think it could be a really cool session, because especially with the free version of Data Cloud,
Hmm.
I think that um there's a lot of, I mean, there is details, but I don't know exactly how things are consumed. I haven't, to be honest, I know it's documented. I haven't dived into the documentation, to be honest. But I think it would be cool to kind of bring someone from the Salesforce team to help us get educated a little more on the pricing structure, for Data Cloud.
100%.
The another resource that I found useful is the developers team at Salesforce has a Data Cloud Decoded, which they explain like really basic concepts for Data Cloud, but in a nice way. They'll have a playlist in YouTube, so I'm putting it there. And then the last one is I highly recommend the Data Consultant Trail Mix if you're interested in taking the certification. It's a really cool also way to get to get a lot of knowledge on Data Cloud. So that's pretty much it. For the third session, the hope is to look at segmentation and activation options. We split this series in 4 topics, but I feel like like Fred was saying, and others, they have other ideas on type of sessions. So I feel like this could go on 5 sessions.
Yep.
I mean, we're just scratching the surface, and that's it. That's the goal of these sessions. As you can see, like I spent almost an hour talking about creating a data stream and mapping it. So, but yeah, there's a lot to cover. I mean, we haven't even looked at data transformations and calculated insights yet. That could be another session on its own. So, yeah, so we answered some questions. I know I want to kind of give people a little bit of time to get back to your meetings. I want to, but if if you're in the area, and whenever we meet, come join us. But also you can join the Slack community where you can ask questions, and we can have conversations. We try to make it fun there. And then if you have ideas on if you want to present, again, like we try to to come up with topics, but we love people to volunteer to present. So there is a form to accept submissions for presentations. So if you wanna do a product overview or a demo or a case study or have an open discussion, we're always welcome ideas. We have some ideas here in the future that we want to also execute. But yeah, if you have any ideas, feel free to submit them, and we'll take a look at it. So with that, thank you so much for your time. We'll keep you posted on when the session number 3. We have to finalize some agendas with Tom, but we'll keep you posted on the community. And again, we'll share the recording and the PDF for this session on LinkedIn, Slack. I'll share it everywhere, kind of like broadcasted. So you'll hear from us. And yeah, I don't know, Tom, if you want to add anything else.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. Nothing really on my end. Thank you, obviously, Pato, for walking us through all this. I think this is very, very helpful, even for me, as I'm still, learning a bit about Data Cloud specifically. So you made it really easy to digest. But yeah, to reiterate what Pato said, more follow-ups to come following this meeting. Definitely join our Slack community. We can continue the conversation there with questions and other things. And yeah, we'll definitely keep you all posted on when our 3rd session will be sometime here, likely in December. So thanks everyone for your time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.